Hello and welcome to the Cue-Rious Minds podcast, where we uncover the mental game of cue sports. Join hosts Zach Lamb and myself, Matt Andrews, as we explore the psychology of competition, performance and the journey of champions. Right, Zach, how are you?
Pretty good. Really good, actually. It's WrestleMania weekend, so I've been up till 5, 6 in the morning watching WrestleMania every night, which is one of my one of my pastimes.
Is it? Yeah, that'd be interesting to work on in that field.
In that field, it'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I don't know, really.
Also, I got some new glasses. I don't know if you can see them.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah. How are you getting on with them?
All right, they're just Blu-rays, so like I don't actually need glasses.
Right.
But I read a study or an article that said when you're teaching, if you wear glasses, people pay attention more to you. So I thought I'm going to get glasses, and I have noticed that people pay attention more to you. I mean, it's been quite a quiet couple of weeks education-wise because most people are off for the Easter holidays.
Yeah.
But I've had one-to-ones in between for students, and yeah, I think they pay attention to you much more. I'm going to keep looking into these kind of behavioral NLP tricks that get people pay attention to you.
It's an interesting one because I've kind of naturally kind of found out myself over the years, really, because like I tried to keep myself up to date with any changes and my knowledge and things up to date and that as well. But I have noticed, like, generally, I'd say that like my training, my qualifications and everything else and my experience was like years ago, you know, the main kind of part of it and the meat of it and the bones. But I did realize, and I did notice that the younger I was, the least people sort of would pay attention or listen to kind of what you had to say.
I get that.
But gradually, as I've got older, I've noticed a big shift of more people that I went grey, lost, you know, my hair in the middle a bit and all that sort of thing. And the more older I've got, the more attention people seem to like take of me, which is interesting. And so there's definitely something in it.
I think so. I like them, and I know you do as well. You would prefer the fly on the wall approach, but when I was at Sheffield last weekend for the quality, a week or Monday ago, maybe 2 weeks, 10, 14 days
ago. Quick.
Yeah, it has gone quick, hasn't it? I got asked for a picture for the first time ever.
Right.
And I'm close to certain they thought I was a player. I don't know who I look like, you know. Yeah, so this lady comes up to me and said, "Can I have a picture?"
That probably be Pat, I would have thought.
Not sure. Maybe it might have been. She was
probably Patricia, I think.
She was really nice. One of the nicest people give me. But yeah, it was quite interesting. I was wondering, like, has the glasses made an impact?
Yeah,
she came up to me just because I wear glasses, you know.
That did happen to me at Leeds at the Northern Snooker Centre once, where I turned up. Like, if anyone sort of knows me, we might as well go into that. I do go to venues and I go to tournaments and things. Sometimes people say, like, why don't we see you around tournaments? And I always go if there's a need for the player, you know, for me to be there, if it's value, you know, of value for me to be there. Otherwise, we tend to work away from venues and tournaments. But if anyone sort of obviously that does know me, I normally kind of have like my black shoes, black trousers or pants, as they call them up north, and a jumper or something like that. And I was wearing a black shirt sort of one weekend when I was at the Northern, and one of the officials come up to me and just said, "Oh, like, what time have you been told what time you're playing yet?" and things. And I just kind of looked at him strangely and realized that I must have looked like a player. And I went, "I'm not actually playing." So
I was going to say Peter Ebdon, but
I've had John Higgins recently. I've had that a couple of times. Yeah. So even
I won't say who I usually get. I don't want to offend them, but
okay.
They're much significantly better looking than me. Let's just put it that way.
It's an interesting one. It is interesting. Right. So yeah, we've had the qualifiers. I kind of we obviously sort of thought we'd catch up. Start of the World Championships. Ronnie's been obviously a big talking point. I'm obviously really pleased that he's kind of there in Sheffield at the moment. I know that he's been previously at other tournaments as well. Obviously, a big talking point that's been rumbling on since kind of January, really, when he kind of last played, sort of in his last tournament, and obviously there was the infamous Q incident and that sort of thing. I don't. It was difficult, really, to kind of carry on doing a podcast and up to date sort of little snippets on the World Championships without mentioning Ronnie and the situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And obviously, he's due to play. The draw came out, and of all people, he's due to kind of draw Ali Carter as well.
Yeah.
You couldn't make it up, really. I don't think.
No, I think for the media, it's like probably the best job they could get. It's
Yeah.
like, and I mean, first thing I'll say, this is a negative to start with, but some of the pop-up links that I've seen in the past 3 weeks talking about Ronnie, Kyron, Murphy, Williams, they're just media poison. Half of the stories aren't anywhere close to as true as what they
No.
post.
No.
And the way that they post it is for clickbait, it's for attention. It's not because
Yeah.
there's any substance to what's being said.
No.
But I do feel in a way that the Ali Ronnie scenario fueled even more of that clickbait. You've seen it here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a history that's very clear on the media.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways it's probably I think it probably is the draw of the first round. It's the one everyone's like, I'm not going to miss that. You know,
Yeah.
There's a nice history behind it. So that gives it a bit of drama, a bit of momentum. Both players are exceptional players. Both play quick. Ali's cue action is one of my favorite cue actions to watch. It's so like dynamic, and he's just like cues the ball so smooth. They're both aggressive. They're both break builders. If I remember correctly, they played in was it a Masters final? They played definitely in a World final.
Yeah.
They played in a final last year as well.
Yeah.
And I think Ali's only beaten once, and it was at the Crucible with the famous shoulder barge that occurred on the left side of the table.
I'm not. It's a strange one as well, really, isn't it? Because I'm not one of those that I think like I follow the directions that we kind of use, like stay in the moment, day by day.
Yeah.
And I'm really poor at like stats and history and things like that and things. I think
I saw it on BBC before. So
right. Okay.
I got a nice top up.
I think they've actually played each other quite a large amount of times over the years, and it really favours Ronnie result wise. I think there's been kind of a handful of wins for like Ali over the years. There's always a little bit of a debate of I kind of don't like using it in a way, but how was Ronnie on that day when they kind of played things the same as any other player? That I have to be a bit careful because I don't want to kind of go against anybody's confidentiality or anything like that at all. So I know that it kind of what has been going on goes back further than what has been put out there by the press quite often. It goes back further than that, but then it was in the press at the time of that anyway as well. But yeah, my kind of main thoughts is just the way things have worked out. Really, is obviously Ronnie hasn't played very much recently. I know in the media he's kind of spoken about how he has practiced with Barry Hawkins and things, and he's kind of had some encouragement from Barry, which is great. Barry is a great practice kind of partner for anyone. I know a few people that have kind of practiced with him. And I know that Ronnie will really respect his view as well. And then Steve Peters has said some kind words as well. I do know, and I have to say that there's people that never get a mention, and they never will get a mention, but I know that they help out so much. And in a way, kind of more than what those two people probably have done recently and things. But there's always a lot of people that never get a mention, but do help out a lot. But for me, you've got, generally speaking, with regard to anyone, you've got someone who hasn't played for a while, who has openly kind of said how they feel about kind of the tournaments. I think the documentary a couple of years ago or a year ago,
Yeah, yeah.
a couple of years ago now.
The seventh one, was it, when he won his
Yeah.
seventh?
Yeah, it's such an eye opener and a real good insight into what Ronnie does in his own life and his, you know, his life away from snooker and things, and how the World Championships affects him.
I think what was really interesting about that documentary was you hear, I think we talked about this on the last cast. You hear a lot of the time people say, "Oh, the top players don't feel pressure. They don't get nervous. They don't go through what I go through." And you think, just watch that podcast, just watch that Netflix episode, that documentary, that hour-long movie or whatever it is, because you can see there are moments in that where Ronnie is really in his own head. You know, and I think in some ways it's really good awareness-wise, for mental awareness, to know that when you're under pressure, when you're feeling it, you could be Ronnie O'Sullivan. He still goes through that exact same process. You know.
There's some really good documentaries out there on the whole at the moment. There's one with Chris Eubank where
that was good.
He talks about very similar thing, and you'd be really surprised about his reaction over you know, kind of the events that sort of took place in some of his fights and things, and you know, the tennis documentaries that are out there at the moment as well, and the F1 ones, and basketball as well. There's a lot of basketball ones. But yeah, so I think it is generally you've got someone who hasn't played for a while, has been really open about their feelings and their thoughts and how things may affect them at different times. You've got the huge, great big circus that is the World Championships and away with the media that you've mentioned and stuff. So you've got lots of things to contend with. I think Ronnie, in a couple of days ago, sort of mentioned in an interview that it's a win for him just to be in the area and to turn up at the venue, which I completely agree with. But I was going to kind of jump to my main point really, but before I do that, then you have the draw with all the feelings going on that you might not be having around the tournament itself, and then that adds another dynamic as well that you've got to kind of manage and face. My view is very much so of, you know, breaking all that down into very small steps, one day at a time. I think there was another interview where he kind of hinted that, you know, there's still, I think the media went into it a bit as well, as in there might be a hint that he might not still play on Tuesday. That's always a possibility for absolutely anyone and all the players anyway.
It is, yeah. And I think it's, I mean, if I'm Ronnie, and I feel in any way, shape, or form that my health could be hit detrimentally as a result of me playing, I'm going to consider pulling out. Because like, he's not had a good year in terms of health. Again, I'm trying to be careful for what I say, but he's not, like, the media and the way that he spoke, it has suggested, and I don't know this to be true, but has suggested that he's struggled mentally, that there's been some relationship difficulties, and that he's not had the greatest year compared to past years. And if I felt in any way that my physical and mental health was being strained, having a strenuous approach in this time period, and it was pushing me too much to the point where I was going into a place where I didn't want to be there, I would pull out. I think sometimes we come up that we have this clear idea that an athlete should always turn up, they should always be strong, they should be a warrior mindset, they should be able to, you know, face anything that they're chucked at. And because he's a 7-time world champion, they forget that he's a human being, and every human being should have autonomy. They should have agency. They should act authentically. So he deserves, if he wants to pull out, he deserves empathy and compassion. He doesn't deserve a slap on the wrist or a media, you know, eruption of, you know, he don't deserve to have his name rubbed in the mud, because, like, this is like, we talk so much, you know, the Mark Selby, Ronnie came out a couple of months ago saying how mental health is a massive part of what happens. It was in a Eurosport interview, a massive part of kind of how it impacts their day-to-day life. You can't have them talks and expect a player to be open and honest emotionally on TV, and then when they pull out, chuck it in their faces. It doesn't match up. If you've got to make sure that athlete, irrelevant if it's Ronnie O'Sullivan or it's an amateur, if they're not in a good place and they feeling it, they should get help, and they shouldn't be put themselves in situations where they're under incredible amounts of pressure.
No.
No, I personally want Ronnie to turn up and to do what Ronnie does and to blow people away. I want to see the best out of Ronnie. I want to see the rocket that we all love. But also, if we don't get that, I wouldn't be annoyed or upset. I just kind of understand that maybe he's not in the best place. Maybe the external circumstances around him at this moment in time don't allow us to see that Ronnie. We'll see him again, I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
But I think my opinion is, and always will be, and I know yours is the same. It has to be the player first, whether it's Ronnie O'Sullivan or could be me playing a league match. You have to put your own health and your own, them 3 A's, autonomy, agency, authenticity. They should be at the heart of every decision that an athlete makes.
Yeah, no, definitely, I think so. I've and I know, years ago, I had in other sports as well. I had a few coaches say, well, we're on different lines here. We're after the trophy and the prize money, and as I'd explained to them, years ago, is I want the same. I want the same. The player wants the same. But do we want one trophy and one lump of prize money, if you like, and serious damage to a person and their health, or do we want that? Are we willing to sacrifice one trophy and one lump of prize money, even if it's a big tournament, for a healthy person that then can perform over and over again to years to come?
Exactly,
and to win, more, potentially to win more, or to have a greater stability and consistency where they can earn, at other levels, a really decent living out of a sport that they can look back on, rather than that being cut short. And I'm happy that things have kind of changed over the years, but there's obviously still a lot of work to be done on the mental side of things.
Yeah.
And I know that there's still some coaches out there that will kind of go, well, it is very much how you said earlier. It's like all or nothing. You've got to kind of fight for that. But there's been players in the past, only one, to be honest, that really stands out, as in where I wasn't working with them, but I think if I was in their camp, I would have said, look, you need a kind of reset. You need a year out, I would suggest, to kind of rebuild yourself, gain that confidence, self-belief, deal with anything else that's sort of going on sort of at the moment. I'm not talking about Ronnie, I'm talking about someone completely different, where, it was on my mind as that's definitely one person who I would have said, you need that time out to kind of reset and to rebuild. Whereas other people, if you can kind of treat it a little bit more gently, actually listen to the person and react and respond to them, there's no need for that, because you save further damage being done. And it's all about looking after those people, isn't it, really? So
100%. I mean, I got a wee story to carry on from that. And it goes kind of one step further, and it's, well, what's your expectations? Like, what do you want from snooker? And I remember I was working with a professional. I'm going to have to be careful how I tell this story, but he is a seasoned professional, and he had this kind of, let's call it a pre-performance routine. It was very intense. It involved very loud music. It involved kind of getting ready like a boxer would. Like, I'm going to go out there, we're going to go punch for punch, I'm ready for it. And we'd done maybe 4 to 8 weeks of work up to this point, like pre-season. And then, in all the pre-season work, I said, okay, what 3 emotions do you want to feel when you're out there? And the first emotion was calm.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you see how your pre-performance routine is the opposite of calm?
Yeah.
You're telling me you want to feel calm. Your expectations are to feel calm.
Yourself up, aren't you?
Yeah, but you're psyching yourself up. You're getting yourself into this kind of really high arousal state. It's like you're going out for battle. And it's like, okay, well, if you can play either way. Like, there's no wrong way. But sometimes you've got to make sure that your expectations match what you're trying to
Yeah.
achieve. So so I won't go into detail on how we worked on that, but to kind of not breach confidentiality. But
I'd always say with that as well is that if you are preparing yourself at that level, there's where else do you go from there? You've only got one place to go, haven't you? Which is either there's nothing else left to go to, or you just go higher and higher from there.
Yeah.
But if
Sorry, carry on.
Preparing calmly, practically, and what I would say is properly, really. You know that you've got all of this to kind of move along to. You can kind of go up the gears when you need to, and it's not about discounting that level, but it's about starting at a level where you can kind of build into things and use what you have got, knowing that if you need to, you can go up those different gears. If you're starting up here, you've got, you're already at the ceiling, so there's no room for much else, is there really?
No, and I think sometimes though it's we act on the patterns that have worked in the past, and sometimes it's the patterns that need changing.
Yeah,
it's like the patterns that got us to being a professional are not always the patterns that are going to keep us a professional. It's a lot of the time they are, but not everything is quality. And with this specific player, who I must say is one of the standout professionals in terms of approach, mentality, work ethic that I've ever worked with. He's really is like 10 out of 10 in that area. It was a case of we just wasn't acting authentically with our expectations. And we could work on that. It's a very easy thing to work on, but you have to notice it, and you have to talk about it, and you have to see if a different approach matters. And of course, one thing that's really important to say to the listeners is every individual is unique. If you're listening to this and you're like, nah, I want to be pumped up, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? But if you don't want to be pumped up, maybe don't listen to pumped up music.
The thing is, well, though, even catching you on that, it could be fine, but it might not be. They might know another way of working, mightn't they? Or they might not realize the benefits of starting
of a different way.
So,
of a different pattern, let's say. Bringing it back to Ronnie, though, I think a lot of the stuff we've just talked about, he's got a lot of this in place. We both know that. I just wanted to bring one thing up. Very famously with Ronnie, he had that kind of Stephen Hendry walkout moment. And I always feel so emotional watching that, because I think that's a man who got backed into a corner and had to walk out to get out of that corner. And sometimes, for me, when I look at Ronnie, I think that's what we want to protect. We don't want that to happen again. And if it does happen again this time round, he doesn't deserve to have a negative image for it. He doesn't deserve to have... people need to be empathetic towards the man and the mental health challenges that he's going through as a human being, is what I'm trying to say. This is someone who has got a history of not feeling... being very open about when he's not feeling his best. And there's a large portion of the snooker world, and it might because most of us, me included, are males who see weakness and have that toxic masculinity, because this is our role model, and we want him to be the best that he can be 100% of the time, because he's who we want to be like. He's our inspiration, me included with that. But I just want kind of, if I could send one message to Ronnie, you'd think about that Stephen Hendry walkout, and I think if you ever felt similar to that, where you felt like you was getting to the edge, it's perfectly okay to walk out again. Don't allow yourself to suffer to the extent where you're broken and feel like you're beyond repair for a sport that you've already given so, I want to swear, so effing much to. You get what I mean? And I mean that in the nicest way. I'm not judging him. I'm saying it from a place of kindness and empathy. I just want the best for Ronnie the person, but I also want the best for Ronnie the snooker player. So I hope we get both. But if we don't, we need to be open-minded, empathetic, and compassionate to the person that he is. And that goes for every single snooker player who's playing in this event, not just Ronnie,
No, definitely. I think from my side, I'd consider myself a friend of Ronnie's and things, and like that friendship always comes first as well. Where you know, from day one, really, you know, I've only ever wanted the best for him as a person, and I've always just wanted him to be happy. You know, you know, I know there's members of the public. I can completely understand if you've paid for tickets, if you've, you know, you've turned up, you've traveled miles. Some people travel across the world to,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, see sporting greats perform, you know, at their best and things. And unfortunately, kind of a little bit more realistic, I guess. I can kind of understand where the frustration and that side comes from. I wish it wasn't there. The media obviously play a huge part in building things up and playing on stuff to, you know, sell papers really, and newspaper space and all the rest of it. Today it's all follows, likes and reactions, isn't it, on social
It
media?
is, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
they're
That's why you
after.
see all these horrible pop-ups.
Yeah. But as a friend, you know, I would be over the moon if he, you know, if he didn't play ever, and he said, you know, I'm absolutely happy and I'm content.
With
I'd
what
be
I've achieved.
happy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd be happy for him. But um, I know, and I think you know, most people out there kind of know there's so much more for that he could give to the sport,
yeah,
and
and
you know,
achieve.
yeah, and achieve,
You know,
and there seems, don't they, that, you know, that kind of mystical weight fits definitely there to be had if he kind of wants.
yeah,
And there's that there's the fairy tale kind of bit, isn't it, where it just seems right really that he achieves that at some point.
it does. Yeah, yeah. I mean, is he almost 50 now?
Yeah, he's 49, so 50. He's a year younger than myself, which yeah, I often think about also, but yeah, yeah, he'll be 50 next year. But yeah, no, you know, it just seems to be, doesn't it? There's like
Well,
that
I was going to say,
fades
there's
and
no other
stuff.
athlete in the world who you'd look at, maybe
Mm,
Phil Taylor would be the only one,
mm,
where you think that they could get to 50 and be the best in the world. But with
yeah.
Ronnie, you know it, you
Mm,
believe it, and you can future think and you can imagine seeing it because he's
yeah.
that good. You know what I
I
mean?
I always, it was the main quote that always stuck out for me is, "Don't ever tell me that I'm done.
Yeah.
I'll tell you when I'm done." And he hasn't said that yet. You know, far
Mm,
from it. And you know, there's, you know, the fairy tale kind of bit, I think, is there. The writing's on the wall. It just needs to be underlined underneath
mm,
me, really. You know, I kind of, I feel like I've got a great understanding of him and things. I've kind of been really privileged to spend the time with him when Ray Reardon was around and things like that and stuff. You know, I bump into him when I do, and you know, kind of always happy to see him and say hellos and all the rest of it. You know, my kind of dad sees him, you know, pretty much all the time, really, and stuff, and so do other family members as well. And yeah, I just want him to be happy.
mm.
I do believe that's there to kind of be had. It feels that it's going to happen one day, but if it doesn't, I think he's done amazingly well to achieve what he has with
I
the
agree.
that have gone on as well. So
I think he's the metaphor for resilience,
mm,
determination, grit, and passion because there's plenty of people who would have hit the rock bottoms that he's hit and they wouldn't bounce back.
yeah,
But he's always bounced back,
mm,
always, no matter what's happened, whether it's walking out of a snooker match, whether it's having a year out, whether it's
mm,
having a tough time off the table, he's always bounced back and he's always won.
yeah.
So there's nothing stopping him from bouncing back this time,
No,
you
no,
know.
and
And
I think it's, you know, very small steps. You know, there's an awful lot of distractions. There is the circus that goes on around the Crucible. It's an experience all of itself, and which I think you only really get at that building as well. The media obviously don't help. You know, it's a very small enclosed arena. The crowd are on you as soon as you kind of get anywhere near the venue when you're in the city. They're always waiting outside that stage door for
yeah,
autographs and all the rest of it and stuff. It is a great atmosphere. I want him to kind of do well, but I think the key really is just take everything in those bite-sized chunks. Doesn't matter how small. You know, just one step at a time, really,
mm.
and hope
Me
he.
and John have a saying. We say one match, one frame, one shot at a time.
Yeah.
And that's what he's got to do. He's got to take it one moment at a time.
Yeah.
And whether it's like, if that's a shot, or if it's, I don't know, going for a run, or if it's eating healthy food, or whatever it is that he does in that moment, if he can accumulate more positive moments prior to his match and throughout the World Championship, we could be talking about an 8th world champion.
Yeah.
And that goes for anyone listening as well. Like, the process is the exact same, whether you're playing a league snooker final or whether you're playing in the World Championship. They're both very similar in that respect, aren't they? So the processes often remain the same, as you'll hear us say a lot. It's just about changing the patterns that go with the processes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's been a nice first segment, Matt.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just for anyone listening as well, John who?
Oh, John Farnworth. John Farnworth, obviously. If I ever say John, it's almost always John Farnworth.
I know. It's good old John. So I hope he's doing well as well. It's
yeah, he's good. He's good. We went to World Snooker a couple of weeks ago, and it was a good laugh. The player we worked with as well, he's a good laugh as well. It's really, like, we're so determined to get the result, but also we have so much fun whilst we're there. That's what it's about. That's why, like, I always have got the best job in the world. No matter which job I go into, it's positive, it's fun, and it's enjoyable. You know, life couldn't be better.
Yeah, no, definitely, and it is really, like, I know it's a bit of a off-topic talking, really, but sometimes, every now and again, I'll get a message saying, aren't you supposed to be really serious and things like that and stuff and things, but I think humor is the best tool going, because it's great at breaking the ice. It's great at relieving a little bit of pressure when that seems to be there. When you have disappointments, I come from an environment where, obviously, within the police and things like that, where we used to use dark humor sometimes that would be frowned upon, really. But it was a way of really kind of looking after your own mental health and coping and stuff. And, on those hardest sort of days when you have those setbacks, a little bit of humor, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
The best thing, isn't it? Like, I was thinking, I went to a meeting the other day with my supervisor, an important meeting, and all three of us was in the lab. And whilst we were having this important meeting, we were playing basketball. We have a hoop, we're throwing this basketball, and we're talking about important stuff, but we're just there casually playing basketball, enjoying it, having a chat, having a brew. Few biscuits, gluten-free for me, normal for everyone else. And I think sometimes you get associated with, like, a level of intensity, because when people see you and you're working with a player and you're behind the scenes, you're intense. They're the intense moments. So they see you for a couple of hours and they think you're this intense, like, person who's always in the moment, who's always driven, who's always there. That's not the case. Like, I might do it in a match. I'm very intense. I'm very driven. I'm very focused. I'm very with the player, and I feel it the way that they feel it, and I'm trying to gauge how I can react to get the best out of the player. But as a general, I'm laid back, funny, and I don't know, if anyone who knows me will say a bit of an idiot. I'm very clumsy. I'm messy. I'm just your typical geezer, really. Do you know what I mean? And you're the same. That's the way it should be.
I used to be clumsy. That seems to have, I've kind of grown out of that a bit. I don't know whether
I do.
Well, I don't know whether
it's just that it does.
Don't take the same risks as what I do or did years ago. But yeah, I used to be clumsy. Yeah, no. So that's Ronnie. Wish him all the best for Tuesday.
Good luck, Ron.
Especially against his opponent as well, from my side. So I'd like him to do well on that one.
I hope Ronnie wins, but I do have just the way that you play his card. I love the way he plays, but I do hope Ronnie wins. I hope Ronnie runs deep. I do.
Yeah. No, it's no, I like we said, I hope he takes good care of himself, one step at a time, and I hope he enjoys the tournament. I think that's the main thing.
Exactly, I'm with you on that.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Zach.
No problem.